Hello, everybody! Welcome back to What If Rome Never Collapsed. In this episode, we will be going over a war that will happen. Pretty big war. I'm pretty sure the first major war that would happen. So, let's begin. Rome is gonna start conquering some lands in probably you would say that is Balkan. So, in Balkan territories. And, Upper Balkan territories. Now, they would achieve this correctly. And they just conquer the territory like usual. And then the Nordic Union catches it up and starts conquering lands above the Balkans. Like, more above. Not fully, like, in the Balkans, but, I'm pretty sure you'll know, So, and after negotiating, they buy this land. Because I'm a little lazy today. So, Rome takes some more Balkan territories and more until they fully reach the border of between the Nordic Union and basically Rome. So they conquer more and more. Also, if you could comment on how much territories, or how many wars I should put in like these 20 episodes. This is number 2. Yes, it is number 2. Because last time was an explanation of what happened in the episode. So yeah. Also comment if you want this name thing up. It's just a question because I haven't been getting replies. But if I should comment if I should, I might do a poll later today. Also, there's gonna be a video coming up. Probably this weekend. I'll give it to you guys. I'm not gonna spoil it that much, but it's a pretty good thing. Also, I might make since it's like Wednesday today, I'm gonna post it overnight. So you'll receive it in the morning of you'll receive it in the morning of Thursday. So, yeah, Rome is pretty huge right now. Well, it was already huge, but now it's even bigger. So, not India, but the Somalians are gonna go more and more down into Africa. And until they reach the coast of Africa. Now, this isn't that huge, but that's the thing. A rebellion happens. Rome is supportive on the side, but doesn't act on the war. They only trade with it. The Somalians are like, whoa. We don't know what to do here. So they're just gonna let them be independent. Now, this new nation, the South Africans, I think I should call them, are gonna expand on the coast like what the Somalians did. But they're not gonna conquer that much. They're just gonna conquer some territories and establish more of a government. Well, spend more time establishing a government. Rome is like pretty good allies. The Silk Road probably runs through here. Also, I don't know how to like add lines, custom lines. So let's just say I'll post a video, a short on what the Silk Road is. So the Silk Road probably goes from this part of the Nordic Union through let's just call this the Rhine Federation part, into Rome, then it encircles along the coast, then, Athens, which that's part of the new video, and then go all the way towards India and towards China. Then it goes to that part. So it's basically a circle. Well, not anymore because the new nation. Now the Silk Road shuts down because of what the war, like it shuts down because of the wars. But no battles take place on the Silk Road. Now Rome is going to expand further into Africa because that's what they basically did. And then take some territories along their coastal territories. So yeah, Rome has expanded quite a bit. But now it's time for India's turn. Also, I think I should give custom names to these civilizations. I don't know though. So they're gonna conquer more, and more. Now, I'm not too picky on lands, but I'm pretty sure this... Oh, well, it is owned by China, but China hasn't conquered any of the, lands that they have today. Well, they have, but not as much. Now, India is just going to take more and more and more without paying attention to their borders. Now, China and Rome have mixed, won't speak out about it. Now, India's just gonna encircle more and more territories until they conquer all of their territories that they conquered. China wants to catch up, so China's just gonna go to what is Mongolia today, and probably conquer more and more of North and South Korea until they conquer all of the peninsula. Now, NATO doesn't exist. Well, NATO hasn't existed in this time period. This is a what if. So there's just gonna be an alliance, secret alliance. Now, Rome and the Southerns, I like to call. I'm just gonna call them that. Are gonna have secret alliance, not with any nation, just them two, until there's a new nation, maybe. The Roman province of Egypt is growing really fast. So, new laws are added. Now, people don't care about these laws, but Somalians do because they talk about, them a lot. So, they're not gonna say anything right now, but they might in the future. So, the entire Korean peninsula is conquered without anyone caring, essentially. China will conquer coast and conquer this part of, Asia, Russia. Also, could you guys, tell me which is bigger and which is your favorite, because I might keep them. So, there's gonna be a little Cold War going on between China, Rome, and India. Now, these three are just trying to rush to power. They aren't enemies. They are just trying to expand more and more further out. They aren't, attacking each other. They're just, trying to be the biggest. Clearly, Rome is the biggest at the moment. But China's going to go in Southeast Asia. So, China's just going to conquer what is today Vietnam without any troubles. Now, India gets word of this from the Silk Road. It's still operational. Now they think, oh no, we gotta expand further out more than them. So they're gonna conquer this part of Southeast Asia. Also, I think India will have its first colony today. So, India will expand on the coast now, and until this happens, India gets its first ever colony. Now, this might be, it's not that important, but it is. You see, the Indonesia today is pretty valuable. It is a good government. And India is trying to make a dynasty. Well, not a dynasty, but a formal empire that no one can collapse. It's just gonna stand there for an eternity. Now, India has very, very, very good views on its, very good opinions. Its democracy is its ideals are going very well. They expanded Buddhism through the Silk Road. China is like, this is very valuable. You mind if we take this religion? And India said no, or we don't mind. So yeah, this is a map so far. Pretty good. India is going to expand more into Southeast Asia. Now, China doesn't think of this as much. It's good. Until the Great War happens. While on the Silk Road, a very, very important minister was killed. Well, I'm just making up story. A very important minister from the Yin dynasty, let's just call it that from now on, was killed while in India. So, India says, we didn't do this. You're speaking blasphemy. And China goes to Rome and asks, hey, you want to declare war on India? And Rome said, sure. So, this is the first Indian war. There might be seconds. I don't know. So, China will march their troops go from their capital all the way here. But India knows that China is slow with their troops preparing. So, they take this part of China. China is like, whoa, we can't let this happen to us. So, when they get done preparing, they go into inner India and do the biggest circle or encircling anyone has ever seen. India is like, oh no, now it's time for Rome's part. Rome is going to conquer what is now Afghanistan. And they're gonna start going to Chinese territories. So, war is enraging right now. India is like, I can't let this happen to me. And I am losing all my territories. And China is basically turning into an empire, what it is now, today. And India says, hey, I don't like this. So, it's basically gonna take care of this territory. And China is really mad at this move. But they want to try and keep the peace between them and India. But the peace has already been broken. So, negotiations go on. But Rome and China are still attacking while they are meeting in Sparta. Sparta is just basically the world center of things. So, the war is still raging on. Very, very bloody. It's basically the first bloody war that we had in this series. And so China is going more and more into Southeast East Asian Indian territories. Now, India is like, oh no, I can't do this, man. I can't do it. I'm almost gonna collapse. But India economy actually gets better, and India is like, whoa, we are getting much stronger. So they conquer more Southeast Asian coast, and they go down, conquer more and more land, and they are actually really stable. You would think, hey, they're probably gonna collapse soon, but turns out they are actually good colonists. Well, yeah, very good colonists. So Southeast until they meet up with China. Now, China and India are battling it out. Taking some lands, and China taking their lands, like this one, for example. And Rome is like, hey, this is your war, not ours, so we're just gonna leave it. Well, they're just gonna conquer one more territory. And India is like, okay, you can leave, bye. And India is still waging war with China. Well, the Qin dynasty. And Qin is more stronger than its old self. So India is going to conquer more and territories right here to expand their coastal empire. Well, yeah. And China is like, economy is going very, very bad. There are rebellions about war. And this is basically a race to Southeast Asia. And, sorry, cats got my tongue. And China or India is going, the first Indian empire is going to conquer more and more Southeast Asian lands before they can't anymore. So China, reacting to this, is like, hey, we're in the middle of a war and you're still conquering. So India settles its final land in what is today Thailand. China has no reaction to this. Instead of like, well, not a good reaction, but still mad over this giant war. India's like, hey, you don't want this war, I don't want this war. I say we quit it. And India and China are like, I don't know whether we should end this war. And they are still raging on before this whole territory is taken. China has a surprised reaction, and China is like at the brink of collapsing, and they really need to improve their government, or else they're just gonna sit there dead. Now, India is now pretty big, but the Romans say, hey, since you cost us a lot of reputation, we must have some territories, and India successfully agrees. Now, all three of them go to Sparta, and, well, Peloponnesia, let's just say that, and draw out a peace deal. China gets this land, India gets the rest, well, and China still gets a little more lands from in Southeast Asia, and India is allowed to have a basic military, but they must not expand even more. Well, they can expand, but they must not cause any more wars. India is like, we will think about this deal. Right now, they still are at war with China. China and India are still battling out when Rome said, hey, I'm going to conquer both of you if you don't stop. So India and China have to force agreement to stop the First Indian War. That is what it is called. China and India have to make good relations, have very, very good trade routes, or else Rome will have to step in, because Rome does not like this drama that is spreading. So, this is the official map of the peace deal. You see that Rome gets some territories from the Indian Empire, and China gets the rest of Southeast Asia. And, and the First Indian Empire can keep its colony in Indonesia. It just has to pay some reparations. Not that bad. Like, over $1,000, which is basically equivalent to, I do not know yet, but it's high, but not that high. And, India soon pays these reparations. And the world is at peace for a moment. All is good until the South Africans expand furthermore. Now the Somalians do not like this, because basically tensions just rise and rise every day, because the Somalians don't think it's fair, because they are they are basically the leader of this, but the new Purple Nation wants to be independent from the Somalians. Somalia can't do anything until Rome breaks ties with the Purple Nation, which will probably not happen. Now, this is a part of the video where I, rest my voice, but the South African, nation will go upwards, but that's where they have to stop, because another rebellion happens. They say, hey, you can own all of the South African land while we own all of this. Please do not fight us, because we are just wanting independence. Now, they are not a tyranny nation. Sure, they did a lot of bad things, but they just want to have peace and expand their little empire. And the Purple Empire says, you know what? We don't want any drama. We don't want any fight. So you may become independent. So there's this new this nation. It's just going to expand further on the river. Now, they're just gonna connect their lands. Pretty the ordinary. And now, I don't know if this is a part of history, but oil is first discovered in the Blue Nation and reaches word and has reached word of every nation. And all the nations are trying to get their grabby hands on it. Now, this boosts the Silk Road even more. More people are being born. basically a baby boom, you could say, that happened. Now, whilst this is happening in Africa, China is just gonna take some of the Philippines. India has no reaction to this. It's just, hey, you did that, right? So we don't. If we accidentally sail to those lands, those are your lands, correct? And China says basically yes. So everything is going good towards the Indians, but there's still deep hate. It's basically Christianity. Well, no, I'm just comparing, like, Cold Wars. So, like, Christianity, Islam, basically, what is happening here. Like, they say they like each other, but they really hate each other. That's what I'm trying to say. And so China is going to conquer more islands of the Philippines until they had enough islands. So they're just going to conquer some of those lands until India starts taking more lands of Indonesia. China has no reaction to this, just like, hey, those are your lands, so if we accidentally sail to those, will you attack us? And India says, no, we won't attack you. But probably they will and start some drama, but that's for later. So, India starts going more into southern Indonesia until they reach a giant landmass, Western Australia. Now, India learns about this ginormous landmass and doesn't tell anyone else. So, they're just gonna, hey, we're just colonizing these lands, nothing we're hiding. And China is, being China, suspects him and forms, well, the new order of the new order of the anti-Jap or Indies expansion pact. I don't know. Basically the Warsaw Pact. So this is a alliance between Somaliland, the new Somalis, the new nation, kind of the purple nation, and the blue nation. The blue nation has expanded. They just kept their mouth shut because they're the second oldest empire besides the Romans. You know, there is not that much tension, but people are surprised how quickly the Nordics has expanded. Very good relations between China and them. So they're part of the pact. So India is like, hey, we're not doing anything suspicious. There is definitely not a colony or a whole new land out there. And they are basically like, hey, are you sure you have not done anything? And India, being India, doesn't tell anyone. Now, this might lead to drama, if the Chinese found out, because the Romans really, really want new colonies and, like, everywhere. So they're like, hey, India, if you have anything to tell us, you can tell us. And India tells Rome about Australia. Now, Rome colonizes all the new lands that they have learned about, but not all of it. They leave some for India. And India is like, hey, you're respectful. How about you keep all of that part of New Zealand? And the Romans agree. So it's a pact. China, word gets out. China is furious. Same with the Blue Nation, but not as mad. They're just chilling. But China is enraged about this. They can't do anything because Rome will go and conquer them. But they will have their revenge for the rest of India. But they don't know at the moment. So Rome being Rome goes lower and lower into Africa, more like New Southern Africa, like northern, basically equator, South Africa. They go down and conquer coastline after coastline, being the coastline, basically being a coastline empire at this point. So, word gets out, and every nation is like, hey, that's pretty cool. The Blue Nation, though, they see this opportunity as new trade routes, and they support the Romans in what they are doing. And hey, thank you for supporting us, for going down in your lands. And they set up a pact, the new pact of New Western South Africa. Well, yes. Western South Africa. And this pact goes very well. Trading between nations goes pretty well. China, though. China is still furious. Because India was supposed to tell them, and they never told them until word got out. And China is still thinking about revenge, but doesn't know how. At this point, China is just trying to live its life, but India has, these new laws about land that never got told to China. China, being China, is furious. Now, this wouldn't happen in the current world, because China and India are best buddies. But now, I have to end this episode here. In the next episode, there will be so much that I will go over.